Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Nguyễn Duy Phiếu. I came from English. I'm English major student. So today I want to introduce you guys to a really famous scientific novel or fiction genre of H.G. Wells called The War of Worlds. As you can see, I have a copy here. Okay, so I just give it back. Okay. So H.G. Wells. H.G. Wells, his full name is Herbert George Wells, a really famous English writer. He born in London, a very poor family one. He used to work a lot in governing. He used to write a lot of books about governing and stuff. And then he just came to the thought and then gone to write novels. So what does he do? So he is one of the leading authors in the scientific genre. Him, H.G. Wells, and Julius Verne. Yeah, so two of them. So what does this book is about? So as the name implies, it's the wars of between worlds, two worlds. So what world? It's between us, and the Martians. Mars people. Okay, so I will summarize a little bit, but before that, this is his quote, H.G. Wells quote. No one would have believed in the last years of the 19th century that this world was being watched keenly and closely by intelligence greater than man, and yet as mortal as his own. Yet across the gulf of space, minds that are to our mind as ours are to those of the beasts that perish, intellect vast and cool and unsympathetic, regard this earth with envious eyes, and slowly and surely drew their plans against it. So extraterrestrial invasion trope. Back then, this trope was basically unmined. It's really new. So to give a clear summary, here's the start from finish event. So in one day in 1890s, before World War II, it's going up. Hitler is already on the rise. So there's a astronomer named Olvigi discovered a white blind light on Mars, and then he began to theorize that there is life on Mars, supposedly, and truly it is, but people did not believe in that much, so they just kind of ignore it. And then a few weeks later, there's a quote-unquote fallen star falling into London, but it's actually the first kind of Martian that lands on Earth. Is basically the spacecraft. It's round, it's white. In a few days later, the world is basically being rampaged instead of Nazi. It is Martians from Mars. People in London are quite unaware of this, as the newspaper does not clarify this a lot, and they kind of speaking to it as a joking manner, so people was not very serious to believe this fact. And only when the Martians attacked did they kind of very panic immediately. So the story follow a nameless narrator. We will call him narrator now. He's trying to reunite with his wife in the other side of London. They were previously separated due to businesses and work of the narrator. And going on the journey to reunite with his wife, he went by a lot of crazy and horrifying events, consisting of, why the Martians is here, what they are doing, basically. So people could not actually fight because the difference between technologies of the two races they use a lot of advanced technology, while humans just use like quite primitive weapons against them. And in the end, we human actually won, but not by us entirely. It's because the Martian immune system did not adapt yet to us, so the Martians were killed by pathogens and bacteria on Earth. Basically, they got infected. And that's sum up the movie, not the novel entirely. Yeah. Okay, so it's because of the story. So why did the Martians came to us? Basically, because they lack of food. As you know, Mars is actually a really hostile planet. We Earth has a more parish and good, better environment than this. So on Mars, there's no plants, there's no living organism on the surface. The Martians have to live like deep down underground, and yeah, after like a few thousands of years, they start to running out of food. So to preserve their kind, they have to find a new planet that is habitable to settle their kind. So they choose us. They have observed us for like a few hundred years now. So when they think is a moment that they have understand us enough, they will begin to fire the attack. Okay, about the plot critique. Rate judging from 1 to 10. This is very subjective and is based on era to era. So back then, as I said earlier, as this kind of trope was not very abundant, people like really new to the idea of extraterrestrial invasion. So people like the novel a lot, and it is also like one of the best-selling novels ever. I would rate it as a solid 9 out of 10. Just imagine that normal novel just surrounding about war on Earth, poverty, the fighting between peoples and people. And now there is a author that makes a novel about another species, not from us, attacking Earth, and he writes about how we will be able to fight them or how they will be able to defeat us and conquer us. Okay, so and judging from today's standard, 2022, is actually a quite a mid-level novel. I would rate it as a 4 out of 10 because like how flawed it is. It's really weird, but in the end it's kind of explained reasonably. So what did the novel done right? This is actually a really reasonable novel. The plot of it is quite reasonable because like just how nature and science work. So the alien dies of pathogens. Yes, that is real if you are not adapt to the bacteria on a environment. The chance of you being killed of it by it is like always 100%. It's just really high. So I appreciate this detail. It's quite a reasonable part in the plot. And what is wrong with it? Well, seriously, I could not think of much, but it is it too, yeah. Because of the bacteria stuff, it makes the story like quite plain. The humans could not even do anything at all. It's just kind of hopeless, just in a animal form. But yeah, the movie actually done a lot better than it's doing wrong. Well, I would rate it highly. And move on to the character. So the protagonist here is only a few people. So first we have the main character, the nameless narrator. Second of all is a artillery man who doesn't have too much impact on the story. The third is a young child, a young girl, who is well, just basically dead weight children, you know. And third is a teenager who supposedly have to be dead before that, but he's somehow alive till the end of the story. Um, about everyone, one of the most interesting detail about the character in the Wars of the World is they are basically nameless. No one names them. The only person that has a name is the early astronomer Oyugi. Yeah, he is the only one who has a name. And aside from him, the world is actually has no name. This is really interesting because it shows in the novel how insignificant humans actually are. Like, it's basically the same to us humans to animals. We actually don't name our cattle at all because, well, sooner or later it will be killed. And so is humans. The Martians came here to harvest resources and stuff, not care for us. So, yeah, really insignificant how humans is. Okay, so the antagonist is only one, is the Martian. I kind of intrigued by the Martians here. So, like in the game, the Martians has like a few different types of troops. The basic Martian is like an octopus. Back then they did not know how a Martian look like, so they tried to do it as well H.P. Lovecraftian as possible. So it looks like an octopus with many like squiggling legs and stuff. They have no mouth. They have nose. I believe they have nose, and they have two big eyes in like the middle. So I forgot to mention this earlier. They came from Earth for resource, but what resource? The only type of nutrition they could like supply for themselves is actually human blood. Whenever they want to eat like a human, they do not use mouth because they don't have one. They kind of inject the blood into their veins so they could absorb the nutrition like straightly. So you know, in Mars, there's actually like no animal there as far as the novel concerned about it. Humans and Earth kind of fit that. Okay, talking about different types. So Martian, first they have the scouting unit. It's a Martian and they sit in a drone basically. They just came around and looking for living humans. So the others could capture and then absorb their blood. The second type is we call a tripod because it's like a metal disc with heat rays and piercing things like knives, and it's walked by three legs. Yeah, have three metal legs, so we call them tripods. The next one is basically a flying ship. So what did they do? They spread something called the black smoke. What is the black smoke? It's basically poisonous to human and other living beings. So they could die earlier, but not affecting their blood. So they could harvest and eat the blood later. Quite neat. And that is the antagonist here. Okay, so I want to talk about what the novel has done in this era. So it's basically one of the pioneers in the scientific fiction genre. It's one of the first times. When it was first published, it created quite a stunning and positive public feedback on it. It inspired a lot of later, well, fictional novels later on. So yeah, despite its by today's standards, it's quite mediocre, but back then it was really awesome. Okay, yeah, and my personal thoughts about this. Despite like a few weird plots about how the bacteria be able to kill the Martians, and humans are basically hopeless against the Martians. It's creating a kind of existential crisis. Like instead of brewing wars on Earth, people killing each other for resource and whatever, now we have to be afraid about outer Earth threat, like the aliens is now it's attacked and we could not do anything. So it kind of create a reunioning type of feeling between humans. Now instead of killing each other, we have to be focusing on dealing with aliens, basically, afraid of them being, well, try to attack us next time. At the end of the novel, when the narrator met his wife and the Martian attack stopped, he had several days of being like really panicked and having existential crisis because he afraid now like, well, if what happened if they attack again, they have immunity against bacteria now. So what is we gonna do? Are we just gonna die or anything? So yeah, it's quite logical back then. And also when the first novel was published, basically, it creates a really big hysteria effect on people. People just straight out panic, calling the police, making claims about seeing aliens on their backyard or seeing UFOs on the sky, something like that. It was like a really weird thing to happen. Yeah. That is basically my critique and review of the book Wars of the World by Howard George Wells. A good book. Would recommend it if you like classical stuff. Yeah. So thank you for listening and I'm out.